myself, I'm involved in the Austrian climate movement since early 2019. I was part of the first Extinction Rebellion actions that happened in Vienna. And the problem is that our governments are unable to listen because the science has been crystal clear for more than 30 years. We know carbon dioxide we put out destroys the climate. We know that destroying our climate destroys our base of existence. And still, our governments are refusing to give up the old system, to give up the fossil fuels. In Austria, we have a government that after 2 years of continuous protests by Fridays for Future and others is still trying to build new motorways. It's insane. They're still trying to build projects that will increase emissions at a time when emissions need to come down, and they need to come down quickly because the planet is fucked up more badly than any one of us could ever imagine. And in this time, the Austrian government wants to build a motorway ring around Vienna. I mean, this worked out here in London, didn't it? It's the biggest car park in this kingdom. And now they want to do the same mistake in Austria. They refuse to listen to the science. So it is our turn. If we do not want to be the last generation on this planet, it is our turn to put ourselves in harm's way and to stop them from doing shit by sitting down and blocking the construction sites. And inspired by my friends who did a hunger strike in Lausanne, in Switzerland, I decided to do a hunger strike myself in Vienna to protest against the government's inaction on the climate crisis, and especially against this construction of this new motorway. And when I started, I had no idea how long I would be able to last. In the end, I lasted for more than 30 days. Until the Minister for the Environment, for the Protection of the Environment, announced that all these road construction projects, all these highway projects would be evaluated on ecological criteria, including on the climate impact. I know it's a government, and you can never trust a government on the climate crisis. So let's see how this turns out. Let's see what happens when the evaluation is done. Should happen sometime in autumn. If they say that they can still construct this shit, I will be on hunger strike again. The next time, I will not stop at anything other than a complete halt of this project. We need to have courage. We need to fight, because if we don't, we will be the last generation. But we refuse to be the last generation. If they want to kill us all, we can at least offer some resistance. We can use all non-violent tools at our disposal to make them stop killing us. And we have to stand united. We must not let them divide us across race, across gender, across sexual orientation, across whatever, across class. We must stand united or we will be defeated. The culture war that is hyped up by the media because they want to distract us from the more important things that are going on. The culture war has no place here. I'm also speaking here as a proud out trans woman. So, the culture war has no place here. I'm just one of you. I'm just fighting here to stop this from getting even worse. So, join with me. Let's do this together. And let's put our differences aside for now. Thank you. Extinction! Extinction!
Thank you, Martha. It's our Austria speaks. And now I'm going to ask Rebecca from Greenham to make that link between the Greenham actions and the ones we're taking today.
Thank you so much. Wow. You know, tomorrow there is a march of Greenham daughters leaving Cardiff to walk to what is now Greenham Common land, but in the 80s was a US Air Force base getting ready for a new generation of nuclear weapons. And it's 40 years on. And I'm one of the women that spent children embracing the base. And we allowed Orange Gate to be for some of the men who agreed to come and support, and also to run the creches for the very young children. But a lot of the Greenham daughters, the Greenham women everywhere daughters, they were at Greenham with their mums and grandmums. So it goes through the generations. And so we danced, then we danced on the silos because so many more women had come down. And let me tell you something about that. Embrace the base when 35,000 women were there. December 12th, 1982, you can imagine it's pretty damn cold. Crawling out of my tent, and suddenly realizing that there were all these women incredibly quietly holding candles by the gate. It was the women from Scotland who'd driven down in loads of buses to join us. And bless them, they didn't want to wake us up. That was 6 in the morning, and we needed to be woken up because the Embrace the Base was beginning. And the media thought, well, just for a while, and we were absolutely wonderful. Talked about all those well-meaning mothers and grandmothers who came down to Greenham. But then, 6,000 of those women stayed because Monday was Close the Base Day. Not just encircle the base on Sunday, but close the base on Monday, the working day, 6,000. And then guess what the tabloid said? Oh, now it's all the burly dykes in their boots. Well, let me tell you something. Oh yes, burly dykes, mothers, grandmothers, across the whole spectrum, in our boots because it was muddy and December, and we closed the base totally. We closed the base for over 24 hours, and I can tell you the policing changed. We were being dragged away by ears and arms. My ear got partly torn off. This was happening to us, and they picked on some of us that they recognised from the camp. And we still stood against them. And the next thing we did, 44 of us on New Year's Day, we found a way to get into the base where the nuclear weapons silos, the cruise missile silos were being built. And we got on top. And then we sang and danced. And they had to pull us down. And then after that, we were kind of, well, the government then set up a unit to try to slag us off and diminish both Greenham Women and CND. And they're trying to do that with XR. And I can tell you, when I first heard about XR in 2018, I was so excited. I just said, right, next time that you do it, I think it was the very first one in 2018, next time you do it, I'm going to be there. And I was, for all of the rebellion in 2019, the April followed by the October. But, you know, due partly to my peace wounds from having been smashed on the knees by an American with a rifle when I was in a base that had the cluster munitions, and it was co-located with Greenham a few miles away, but it had all these so-called conventional weapons that kill women and children in the cities, and had just been used killing women and children in Libya when I went into that base. And there were 5 of us, and we painted those bombs, and they said we'd done 750,000 pounds worth of damage, and we thought that's worth it. That's worth it. Who knew that a bit of feminist paint on bombs could ruin them for the aerodynamics of being aimed at women and children and blowing them up? But it did, apparently. But, so, one of the things that, when I was asked to come here, I was also asked to connect with is how much music and dancing there is here with XR and that we had with Greenham. And so I'm going to sort of intersperse what I say with a few songs that some of you may remember and some of you may not, but they're connected also with songs that have developed through XR. And this first one, let me just tell you about it, because in '82 they took all the caravans, and as I said, it was 40 days, it was biblical, of rain, and we were swimming in mud. And a woman called Jan from Wales turned up in her wheelchair and sat round the fire with us, and she sang us a couple of songs, and this one especially. I just said, you have to write down the words, I want to learn this. She gave me that song as a gift, and I've been singing it ever since in so many ways. I don't know anything more than that she was Jan from Wales. I don't even know if she's still alive, but the song is still living, and I sing it in her memory, the memory of all the women and children, all who have died from not just the nuclear weapons and nuclear testing, but from all wars. And let's remember all those who are so desperate for safety and security because of the war that Blair and Bush started in 2003, that is now being arbitrarily ended without any concern for the safety and the security of all of the people of Afghanistan who were trying to develop a better way of living, and especially the women and girls. So this song, the first time I sang it publicly, it was down at Trafalgar Square, and for the first time I've been invited to speak for a C&D demonstration on the plinth there, and there were loads of very famous men shouting lots of slogans and being very loud. And I had to follow somebody like Tony Benn, and I just thought, they're not listening, they're not going to listen to me. So I decided that instead of just talking when they wouldn't listen, I would sing Jan's song, 4 Minutes to Midnight. And you know what? I could feel the waves of silence flowing out across Trafalgar Square. There were 250,000 people. And by the time I finished, it was silent. And then they could hear what I was saying about what women at Greenham Common were doing, personally and politically, to get rid of nuclear weapons. 4 minutes to midnight, 4 minutes to Armageddon, 4 minutes before we die, 4 minutes to say goodbye. This isn't the way they said it would be. They promised the bomb was only keeping us free. Now they're underground, so they don't have to see the eyes of the dying. 3 minutes to midnight, 3 minutes to Armageddon, 3 minutes before we die, 3 minutes to say goodbye. Why didn't we shout? Why didn't we cry? Why didn't we call deterrence a lie? Why didn't we listen to the people who tried to save us from dying? 2 minutes to midnight, 2 minutes to Armageddon, 2 minutes before we die, 2 minutes to say goodbye. This isn't the way they said it would be. They promised the bomb was only keeping us free. Now they're underground, so they don't have to see the eyes of the dying. 1 minute to midnight, just 1 minute to Armageddon. 1 minute before we die. 1 minute. And that I'm drinking my water out of a Coke pink bottle called, and it's recyclable, I can tell you, but called No to War. So that song was part of Greenham, but of course what's happening with climate is exactly the same. Nuclear weapons and climate destruction are the twin existential threats that face all of humanity. It's global, it's shared, but guess what? The indigenous people, the people of the global south, the women, the children, the ones without the military industrial power, without the patriarchal power, they're the ones who are dying first and dying continuously from both the nuclear age and the military industrial climate destruction age. And that's why we have to totally connect together. And so when we were at Greenham, I can remember we started off thinking about non-violence in the ways we've been taught, passive resistance. But then women who had been confronted with male violence in all kinds of ways in their own life, and I'm wearing my Million Women Rise t-shirt here, they said, no, we are not willing to lie down while aggressive men, whether in police uniforms or soldiers or vigilantes, come and try to move us out of the way. We need to get up and dance, we need to sing, we need to shout. And so we listened and we developed what we call feminist nonviolence, and it was anything other than passive. It was the most active, transforming, confrontative, and we recognized, we acknowledged our feelings of fear, our feelings of anger. Because if we're not afraid and angry about what they're doing about the climate, about what they're not doing, about climate justice and climate action, what they're doing still, 9 countries, including this one, with their nuclear weapons, even though, and I was in the UN, when diplomats from most of the global south and a number of countries, like Ireland, like Austria, from the global north, actually got together and negotiated the treaty that bans nuclear weapons in 2017, and it entered into force this year. So it's illegal. Nuclear weapons are banned, and yet we still have to do all the work to get this country on board. But nuclear weapons, like climate, threaten the whole world in different ways. One of the things that nuclear weapons does through radiation, as you all I'm sure know, and that was used with the nuclear testing in the Pacific, in the Arctic, in Africa, on behalf of European states like France and the UK, and of course the US, Russia, China. That's the change that we have to make. But if even a fraction, a tiny fraction of those nuclear weapons are ever exploded, and of course they would be exploded on cities, that's what they're aimed at. The dust cloud that would arise, the dust cloud that... What I really wanted to say was, so if nuclear weapons blow up, do you remember Franny Zui's film, The Age of Stupid? It was all about how there was denial and denial and denial about climate destruction. But then, what actually finished the human race off, when climate destruction had caused so much misery and so many wars for resources, wars to get away from areas that were being turned into deserts and turned into swamps, and like the flooding that we see. It was nuclear weapons that finished the human race off. Do you remember that? And that could well still happen. So what's happening in the climate seemed like it was slow motion 40 years ago when we were at Greenham. Look where we are now. This is an emergency and you know it and I know it. And we need them to act, not just at COP26 with good words. Those words have to be turned into action. And that's why it's so brilliant to see a young Chinese woman brave enough to do the school strikes there and make those connections. So feminist nonviolence is absolutely about resisting patriarchal, military, industrial violence, domestic violence in all their forms. Active and transformative. So I'm going to leave you with a song. I'm going to sing the Greenham version and then I'm just going to change 2 words in it, teach to you so that you can sing it back to me. This is a familiar one, I'm sure you know it, sing it. Stand up, women take our place, create a world without nuclear threat. All together we are strong, break the nuclear chain. So we used to sing that among those other songs. And never let somebody take words like women and girls away from us. This is so important that we recognize how much has been done by women and girls resisting patriarchal violence. And let us also recognize the suffragettes weren't afraid to call themselves women and sometimes girls, but they were gender non-conformity, I can tell you. That's what we need to understand. You know, as women at Greenham, even the straight women were called dykes when they wanted to vilify us, and we owned it. I'm a lesbian, by the way, and I've always worked for LGBT rights, but I know I'm a woman working for everyone to be at home in our bodies and to change our minds and the political minds out there so that none of us feel the need to conform with any kind of stereotypes about who we are, who we can be, where our power lies. And therefore I stand together with all those who are gender non-conforming, because we all must be in order to change the world. But just let's not feel afraid, feel intimidated from those of us who are women and girls for being able to say that, and those who are not being able to say who they are. So this is the way I want to change the song. The first part of it is still the same. Stand up, women take your place. And the next one is just going to change one word from nuclear to environment, which obviously. So, stand up, women take our place. Now from you. Stand up, women take our place. Again. Stand up, women take our place. Next line. Create a world without environment threat. Create a world without environment threat. Again, create a world without environment threat. Let's put those 2 lines together. Stand up, women take our place. Create a world without environment threat. And then, all together we are strong. Exactly the same. Let's add that one in. We'll start from that's 2 bit is all together we are strong. Together. All together we are strong. And the very last line just changes to break the destructive chain. Break the destructive chain. Break the destructive chain. Can we put it all together and sing it at least twice? Good. The first time I'm getting it. Stand up, women take your place. Create a world without environment threat. All together we are strong. Break the destructive chains. Stand up, women take your place. Create a world without environment threat. All together we are strong. Break the environment chain. Extinction! Extinction! So I'm not
LGBT demonstration, feminine, intersex, non-binary, that's me, and trans. So that when we use the word women, which of course we're bound to, it's actually about the spirit. It's about that we're all together, that we respect each other, that everybody has a separate identity, a multiple identity. And that's what we mean if we say women. And I'm echoing what you said. And I'm going to bring on Davis and Daughters, who are three women who are going to sing very nicely, I'm sure. So would you like to come forward and do some a cappella? It's a cappella, isn't it?
Welcome everyone, thank you Rebecca for those fantastic words and for all that important information and history that she talked about. We are a family of women. I'm Holly, this is my mum Sally, my sister Flo, my daughter Rosa is here as well. We come from a family of conscientious objectors in the past, and we are conscientious protectors now and peaceful protesters, and we sing about nature and about saving the world and the planet from the destruction. And Sally, our mum, wrote a song for Earth Day last year. Do you want to say anything about it before we sing? This year, Earth Day this year, Sally wrote this song called Restore Our Earth.
Yeah, I just took the words from what their message was, which is restore our earth, restore our sea, restore our land. It's the only one we've got.
One microphone. We're going to just do one more, and just want to keep the singing going throughout this rebellion as well as the speaking, because I know it lifts the spirits and it helps everyone to join in. So you might recognise this tune. It's taken from a tune by Cole Porter from the 1940s, but we have changed the words.
Don't heed my
have your voices? Can we have your voices? We're going to do a call and response song. This is an encore by request. You're doing it. So this is a call and response. It's a poem by Wendell Berry, who you may have heard of, activist and agricultural movement. And it's really simple. You just repeat after me. It goes, if I had to rise up now. Sorry, I'm singing the wrong song. I knew it had rise in it, and then I did a different rise song. Okay. When I rise, let me rise, like a bird, gracefully, and when I fall, let me fall, like a leaf, gracefully. And when I stand, let me stand like a tree, strong and tall. And when I lie, let me lie like a lake, reflecting all. When I resist, I will resist, like the sea, relentlessly. And when I sing, let me sing, like the wind, wild and free. Thank you, rebels. Thanks for your voices. Extinction! 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 We are Davis and Daughters. See you later.
You said it, Davis and Daughters. Aren't they lovely? I just want to give you an announcement from Mani that on Marble Arch at 12 o'clock there is a demonstration about Afghan women being confined to the house and the situation they face. We also have another announcement coming up.
Hello, you beautiful rebels. It's so lovely to see all of you here. Massive welcome to the women and the Fent who are here and ready to show the world what we're doing. And we've got male and male identifying allies here. So hello to all of you. I'm part of the trainees team, and we're going to have a refresher Know Your Rights just on the other side of the entrance to the tube station there. So just over towards Hard Rock Cafe, we're going to have a refresher Know Your Rights in 5 or 10 minutes. So if you want to brush up on the legalities of protest before we set off, then please join us. New people are welcome, and for those of you who have it but want to catch up, it's just going to be right down there. I'll see you there. Big love, everyone.
I'm going to introduce to you now somebody who represents youth. And youth are a terribly important part of our movement because, of course, they are going to take the brunt of what we are already seeing being put up there, which will stay there for a very long time. And as you know, it will probably hit 1.6 whether we like it or not. And they talk about it coming down to 1.4 after that, but it could easily go much further. And it's to do with at least 100 years of carbon dioxide. Once it gets up there, it's extremely difficult to get down. So we do know that we are facing not just an immediate crisis, but a long-term one. And youth are the people who are going to have to live through it. So I want to introduce to you Lily Wilson, who's already here to talk for youth.
Hi, I'm Lily, and today I'd like to talk to you about why it's so important we keep fighting for climate justice, however dire the situation today. As an activist, I, and I think others too, sometimes worry we may already have gone too far. that before many of us were even born, the fossil fuel burning and the wealth hoarding had taken the steps necessary to kill a million species, and eventually us. Whilst it is undeniable that some tipping points may already have been crossed, such as the collapse of the Western Antarctic ice sheet, what I find interesting is how few of us express this here aloud. Late at night, we might talk quietly about it to each other. But I've never really seen this fear put on our placards or our posters. For me, what's so beautiful about this is it shows however much is already lost, instead of giving in, we keep campaigning for what remains and for what tipping points have not been crossed. This is in and of itself an act of love, because we realise that however dire the situation, there's enough life left to save that we won't stop fighting for it. There's enough untouched forests and unknown ocean to make up for all of the tragedy of what's already been taken in the pursuit of monetary gain. Better than this, today we are now more capable than ever of knowing who to hold accountable for this, and for the vast majority of emissions already taking lives around the world. You probably already know this, but 100 fossil fuel companies around the globe have historically been responsible for 70% of global emissions. Some say higher. It probably is higher. Animal agriculture has a massive role to play too, specifically when it comes to methane emissions. But with fossil fuel companies, it is easier to find concise company names to hold accountable, such as BP, Chevron, Shell, just to name a few. And more than this, what I find so intriguing is that there are real faces behind these companies too, who love just like us, but believe that the hoarding of wealth is what will bring them happiness, and not a living, breathing planet for their children to inherit. And so far, these companies' leaders have been dodging every step towards meaningful change, with a mask of lawyers and advertisement greenwashing. After all, at this point, every solar plant Shell invests in is a drop in the ocean compared to the landscapes they've already burnt and the lives they've already destroyed. We are beyond the need for a minuscule performative reduction in emissions from these companies. We need a reversal for these companies to lock away their carbon for good. As a young person and as an activist, I've often felt pressured to give succinct reasons as to why we should preserve nature, apart from the simple truth that we cannot breathe without it, that we owe it everything, and that's literally wired in our DNA to find comfort in things as simple as running water, green spaces and birdsong. I guess since being very young, I've never understood why people with power seem to find any excuse to gloss over what we owe it. I think perhaps I feel this pressure because often when environmentalists are asked to give reasons to preserve nature, they're really being asked to give monetary value to something which inherently is beyond economic worth. After all, what is the point of money without a world in which we can breathe in and equality where people can spend it? With this in mind, this quote I found recently expressed something in words I've been feeling in my heart for a long, long time. It is no answer to say that streams and forests cannot have standing because they cannot speak. Corporations cannot speak either, nor can states, estates, infants, municipalities or universities. Lawyers speak for them. Right now, we speak for them. So to end, I'd like us to keep fighting to protect something of true value, something that protects us unconditionally, that feeds us, gives us shelter, gives us beauty, and let's achieve something for a justice for something that we all love. Thank you so much for listening.
It's really important that we hear the voice of young people. It's also important that we hear the voices of Malay. Seahorse, to talk to you. Come forward, please.
Hey everybody.
I go by she and they pronouns, so like just switch them up, you know, have a bit of fun. I just want to talk a bit about the gender binary and the way that actually intersects a lot with climate change and with climate destruction. So the gender binary itself is a product of the patriarchy. Not just, like, yes, there's women and there's men, but there's so much more. And the fact that we're all told that we have to be either of these two things is part of the exploitation and the persecution and the binariness of the patriarchy and white supremacy. And like, which obviously we all know is bad, right? Like, that's a bad thing for the planet, that's a bad thing for all of us, to have to fulfill these things that we don't need to. The person earlier who said about gender non-conforming as like the way that we save everything, big up that, love that. Yeah. So my experience as an activist, so I'm just going to point anyway. My experience as an activist, I've experienced sexism in my day-to-day life, right? Most people who are readers then have. Okay, thanks. Sorry, there's so much shouting. It's like overwhelmed. Yeah, so I've experienced sexism in my day-to-day life, and because I'm read as a woman, right? And I'm not. But I've also experienced that sexism in activist spaces as well, and I think that's really important to speak about. The way that people who are feminine or express their femininity, and the way that there's this expectation of masculinity and this standard that we all have to reach, and for what? Like, we know that caring about the climate is what will save it, and that is historically a very feminine trait. Like, we need to bring back the fact that we all have like masculine and feminine energies, and to, again, it's the binariness of it that's the issue, and it's causing division when we need more unity.
Well, you know.
Care for the planet, it's good. Care for non-binary people, they're good too. And trans people, and intersex people, and just get rid of all the binaries that divide us, because they're pointless and they don't do any good, ever.
Hello, lovely people. People have been sitting for a while, so now it's time to march. So can I have your attention for just a minute? So please gather your food, gather everything, and we're gonna go down a nice march along Shaftesbury Avenue, which is right behind you. So if you can make sure that you stand behind the samba band and wait for the samba band to set us up, we're gonna go on a nice little march. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the march on this lovely day.
Now we end, we're going to set up again, and we'll hear some more.
on the pavement for me. 7, 8, 9, 10, and then take it off. Now, that's a test run. There was a little bit too much paint on there, a little bit too much paint, but that's the basic idea, okay? I'm going to get you started. I'm going to do some more colours.